Hey there, it's Marley, aka Type 1 Reader, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to kick off my monthly reading vlog, and it's one I'm really excited about. So basically, at the end of last year, I think it was for Christmas, my partner gifted me an Ancestry.ca test so I could see my DNA, ancestry, origins, kind of like 23andMe kind of thing. And when I got my results back, I had the inspiration of what if I did a reading vlog where I had my DNA pick what I read. So essentially, here are my results. I'll put them up on the screen. You can see the breakdown in percentages of where I'm from, what my background is. As you can see, it's very white, which is not a shock. Looking at me, it's not a very shocking result, but still interesting nonetheless. Basically what I did for the top 6 countries, I have selected a book from that country to read for this vlog. Some of them are going to be translated works as they were not originally written in English. Some were originally written in English, but I think it'll be really fun to kind of step out of my comfort zone a little bit, read more like internationally than I normally do. I do tend to stick a lot to like North American books. That's what we're going to be doing today. I'll quickly introduce you to the books that I chose, and then we can just get into the vlog, which I have already started filming, by the way. Obviously, at the top of my DNA results at 44%, we have Eastern Europe and Russia. And this is the part that did not surprise me, the part that I knew, as my grandparents were from Slovakia and Germany, which is in this region. Ancestry.ca says for this area, it's mainly located in Austria, Czech Republic, Hungary, Moldova, Poland, Russia, Slovakia, Ukraine, and then it also can be Bulgaria, Croatia, Germany, Romania, Serbia, etc. Because I know that I have grandparents from Slovakia and Germany, those are the 2 countries I am focusing on of all of those potential areas. So for the Slovakian book, this was actually the hardest to get my hands on, and how I found these books was essentially just researching on Google, on Goodreads lists. As I said, some were easier to find than others, and I tried to find more contemporary books, ones that were written more recently, because I want to enjoy these books. I want to set myself up for success and not necessarily read like really old kind of classical books that I may not enjoy as much. So this is one I found from Slovakia, and it's the only one I couldn't get from the library, so I actually ordered it. It is Seeing People Off by Jana Benova. It's actually the winner of the European Union Prize for Literature. I think quite a few of these books are award winners. So yeah, it's a pretty short book, but this is the one I'm going to be reading for Slovakia. And this follows Elsa and Ian, a young couple living in a humongous apartment complex outside Bratislava, where the walls play music and talk and time is immaterial. So then for my Germany book, as I said, the rest I was able to get from my library, which was great. So we have The Reader by Bernhard Schlink, translated by Carol Brown Janeway. This one I think was adapted to a film as well, but it's about a kid who gets in an inappropriate relationship with an older woman, I believe, and then he finds her again years later. We'll get more into the plots as we go. So the next section of my DNA is 23%, and it's Sweden and Denmark. So that's exciting. So for the Swedish book, I considered, reading a Fredrik Backman because he is a Swedish author that I already love. But then I'm like, no, I want to go out of my comfort zone a little bit, not just read like an author I know I already like. So I found this book called The Details by Ia Genberg. An acclaimed Swedish author makes her English language debut with this intoxicating novel about a woman in the throes of a fever, remembering the important people in her past, her memories laid bare in vivid detail. Okay, so a lot of these sound a little bit weird, a little bit out there. The next one, we're getting to very low percentages here, but anyways, we have 10% from Scotland. So for my Scottish book, there were definitely more options, with this one, because I think the Outlander books are Scottish, like I could have picked something like that, but I didn't want to do that. So I ended up going with Under the Skin by Michael Faber. And this is like about a woman who picks up hitchhikers, something like that. Again, sounds a little bit weird. And then the next 2 are both 6%. So we have Norway and Ireland. So for the Norway book, I went with The Bird Tribunal by Agnes Ravatn. This one is about a woman who ends up working for this man at his house, helping him around the house, and then this weird kind of dynamic is created between them. It has a very ominous kind of thrillery mystery vibe. And for Ireland, this is another one where I have read from Irish authors before. Mainly I thought of Sally Rooney, and I was like, should I just read a Sally Rooney book for this? But again, I was like, no, let's do something different. So I decided to go with The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue. This one seems pretty popular actually, and it's giving similar vibes to a Sally Rooney, where it's about these young people and their different relationships that they have, and I think some cheating and stuff is going on. Those were all the books I picked. I felt like I would be interested in all of these. A lot of them have kind of a thrillery, mysterious vibe, which is one of my favorite things to read. So I will now get into the vlog, and we can see if I like the books that are from where I'm from. Hello vlog, here for my first update for this vlog. I haven't filmed the intro yet, so don't fully know what I said in that, but obviously I'm reading books based on my DNA, and I decided to start with the book from Norway, The Bird Tribunal. I actually started it when on my trip that I took this weekend for the August long weekend to British Columbia, where my sister lives. It was a really great trip, and I think I filmed a few vlog clips, and I actually went to the bookstore that Books and Lala goes to, Kayla, because she lives in the area that I went to, so that was cool. I got some books there, which I'll haul in my next book haul, I guess. But yeah, I did start The Bird Tribunal there and read a little bit on the flight, and I read a bit today because I did book the day off because we got home at like 8:30 in the morning. So yeah, so I've just been chilling today. I did get to about the halfway point in The Bird Tribunal. This is quite a weird book. I think a lot of these books are going to be weird, or at least out of the norm for me, but this is essentially following a woman who has kind of just abandoned her life because some sort of scandal or situation happened in her life, and now she's kind of running away from it. So she takes this job working for this man at his house and just helping with like gardening, cooking, kind of just helping him around the house. And it's just kind of following their weird relationship. There's a bit of a mystery surrounding this man because he says his wife is away, so that's why he needs help. But it's kind of like, where is the wife? Like, there's not really any sign of this so-called wife, or like the fact that she could be coming back. Like it's a like psychological thriller, so we're gonna build up to something. It's very ominous. It's very like in the main character's head, where we're just hearing her constant kind of thoughts as she's going through her day, caring for this man, being creeped out by him, and kind of getting a little bit obsessed with him as well. She is not really a reliable narrator, is what I'm getting. And also there's no quotation marks, which at first threw me off a little bit. I've only really read, I guess, the Sally Rooney books, which have no quotation marks, but I actually don't mind them. I'm actually someone who doesn't mind them. Sometimes it takes me a minute. You kind of have to concentrate a little bit more, but I actually don't mind it. I feel like it almost makes it just a little bit more of a unique experience. It's feeling interesting. Like, I feel like I'm getting through it pretty quick. It's not feeling like a very long or dense book, very stream of consciousness, which I find personally is something that works for me. But I don't know if I'm gonna like love it. Like, I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with it. I definitely am kind of intrigued to see where it goes and find out more about both of our characters that we're following, the girl and this old, and I'm calling him an old man. I don't think he's that old. I think he's like in his 40s. But yeah, I'm kind of intrigued to see where this will go. As I said, it's based in Norway. There are some references they're making to like Norse mythology and stuff. So I'm wondering, I'm kind of feeling like maybe it's a retelling of some sort. I never read Jane Eyre, but it's almost giving Jane Eyre, right? Because isn't it about like a guy and a girl And then a mysterious missing wife. I don't know. I actually have not read or watched that story before, but I'm wondering if it's making callbacks or references to anything that I'm just not quite picking up, or I'm just kind of wondering what the overall themes are going to be at the end. But it's definitely like what you want from a thriller, where it's like intriguing and mysterious and kind of like creeping you out, kind of weird. So that is what I'm thinking at this 50% update, and I'll let you know when I'm done. All right, I'm back again the very next day because I have finished the Bird Tribunal. Let me say, this was a very quick, easy to consume book. I think it would probably take you like 2 days, 1 day, very quick to get through, which I think I was saying before as well. Unfortunately, I think I am only gonna rate it a 3-star, which is a little bit disappointing, but I just think I always do struggle with shorter books and ratings. Like, it's hard for me to fully get into, I guess, a shorter book and feel like it's worthy of like a higher rating. Also, I just feel like it was a little bit predictable. There was a really great atmosphere. It was creepy, it was ominous. You're thinking constantly like, what is going on with these two? Like, is it a romance? Is it a thriller? The genre is a little bit of a mystery. So that was intriguing, but then with the end, I wasn't, totally shocked by it. I guess I wanted a little bit more from it. It was a bit of an artsy book, which makes sense because I think this was an award-winning book, very like literary whatever, which is great, and I'm happy for the author, and it was very good writing and interesting writing, but just not exactly like something that I'm gonna highly rate or highly recommend. So I am so glad I read it. It had that Norway setting. They were on the fjord. There were a few different Norwegian kind of references to mythology and Norwegian history and stuff. So I'm glad that was included to go with the whole theme of the vlog of reading books based on my DNA. Some part of me, I think it was a smaller part, is from Norway. So, I'm glad I read it. I do hope I end up enjoying some of the other books a little bit more than this one. Yes, that's my husband. Hello vlog, I'm here to check in for my next book. I have hit the halfway point in the Rachel incident, which is of course my book from Ireland. I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm reading them in the order that they are due at the library. So that is why I didn't start with the higher percentage ones. I'm just kind of reading them as I need to for the library. But anyways, this book is going pretty well. I'm definitely enjoying it. It is about our main character Rachel, as you can expect. We do see her in like the present day, where she is an established journalist and she is pregnant and I believe married and everything, but she is reminiscing back on her youth, her early 20s in particular, when she is in college and she meets this best friend of hers named James, and it really seems to be focused mainly on their friendship. So far, I think about a year has passed or something like that. They end up moving in together. James is gay, and so we're seeing kind of his story of coming out to different people, the different relationships, the different romantic relationships that both of them are having during this time. There's some messiness, there's some adultery and different things going on. Just seeing them kind of figure out their life, and I assume eventually we'll come back to present day and kind of see where they're at that point. I do have a guess that James might have passed away, and that is why she is reflecting on this time with him, but that is just sort of a guess right now. I'm not sure. Overall, the vibe is not sad. It's pretty fun. It's they're obviously dealing with some drama, but it's overall just kind of like a coming of age feel. It's not overly funny though. I wouldn't say it's like haha I'm laughing out loud. It's just kind of a good vibe. Probably less sad than Sally Rooney books. I know I made that comparison before, and I'm liking the Irish setting. The UK is not super different from North America, but I always have enjoyed reading books from the UK. I have gone there, I have gone to Ireland before, so I like reading about that setting. Right now the characters are talking about moving to England and how that's a big thing, but then there's obviously beef between Ireland and England, so it is interesting to read about that as well. So yeah, overall going well. I think this will probably be a higher underrated book, I'm thinking maybe like a 4. I just finished reading The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue, and that was such a good book. Like, I actually really enjoyed this book and want to highly recommend it if you're watching this, because I feel like, I don't know, this book is underrated. Like, I haven't heard too much about it. It has a good rating on Goodreads, which I can definitely see why, because it was a great book. But yeah, I want to start talking about this book more because it was really good. I'm gonna rate it 4 stars. I just don't think I can quite rate it 5 stars. The end was like a little bit abrupt. I don't know what it could have done to get 5 stars, but I did overall just really enjoy this reading experience. I know I mentioned it before about kind of feeling like a Sally Rooney book in terms of it being about these young people dealing with their different relationships, mental health kind of issues, and also reproductive issues in Ireland. But it's definitely not as like melancholy as a Sally Rooney book. It's way more lighthearted, funny, uplifting, and just a really good book, especially if you are someone in your 20s or want to read about someone in their 20s kind of just trying to figure things out. I feel like it was very realistic. The Ireland setting was very present. I feel like I learned more about Ireland from this book, especially about what it was going through during the time that this book was set, which is around 2010, and just gives you an overall kind of look more at the UK, as our character Rachel does eventually move to England, and so some of the book takes place there as well. So I just really liked this book. I think if you want like an easy to read book, you should definitely consider this. One that's quite juicy and kind of chaotic, has infidelity and drama and stuff like that, but also looks at some kind of hard-hitting topics, important topics, but that is also fun. Like, it just was a very well-rounded book that left you with like a nice kind of warm feeling. So I'm very glad that doing this vlog forced me to read this book, or made me consider reading this book. I definitely would read more from this author for sure. So we definitely found a win with this one. All right, on to book number 3. I have been reading The Details. This is going to be a very short book. I just started it today. Didn't even read for that long, and I'm already halfway through. This is the Swedish book, and it's definitely not going to be high up on my list in terms of enjoyment, unfortunately. It's still not bad, but essentially we have our main character who is ill. She's having some type of fever, and it's making her kind of reflect on her life. I don't know if she's gonna die at the end or she's gonna get better, but it seems to be, I think there was like 5 different sections, and each of them is a name. So I've gone through 2 of the sections so far. The first one, I'm forgetting the name now, Johanna or something maybe, and it's basically just reflecting on her romantic relationship she had with this woman when she was in her 20s, just explaining the relationship that they had. Then we had Nikki, and this was a friendship she had when she was in college, a little bit younger, and we're just seeing what her life was like at that time. And so we're gonna have a few more sections like that of other prominent people in her life. So by the sound of it, like it's you can probably tell it's not like amazing. It's very just like reflective. It's giving similar vibes to the Rachel Incident that I just read, in terms of like a character reflecting on her youth and the different relationships she had with these people. So I don't know if this is just a coincidence that I picked multiple books like this, or if these books are quite popular in Europe. In terms of the Swedish element, I don't think it's a very prominent part of it so far. There's obviously a lot of places that are referenced that are all Swedish, but other than that, I feel like it could have been taking place in anywhere. It definitely seems to be speaking out about literature a lot. The main character and some of these other characters have a love of literature, and I guess the fact that it's called The Details, I guess it's just because she's kind of exploring some different details of her life essentially, and the message is maybe going to be that it's in the details, like the importance of the details. I don't know. Definitely another kind of like artsy book. I think this has won an award, so that kind of makes sense. I'll have to let you know at the end what I overall kind of think of it, but I think this type of book is not going to be exactly for me. Still glad to be checking it out, still glad to be reading it. I assume I'm going to finish it tomorrow because, as I said, it seems like it's going to be a very quick read. Just kidding, it's the same night. and I just finished the details. Very quick read, obviously. I think I'm gonna stick with my prediction of reading it 3 stars. I feel like I see this constantly on my channel, that it's hard for me to rate something super highly if it is such a short piece of content. And because this was such a book that didn't have a ton of plot, again, it's just hard for me to rate it higher than that, but I still think it was very beautiful writing. I see why it won an award. I will say though, the writing is like, there's not really dialogue, if you're wondering about that. Like, it's mainly just like long paragraphs of this character reflecting, and occasionally she'll have direct quotes from her memory, but like it's not really like the paragraphs are broken up, it's just like long paragraphs. So that can be a little bit daunting to read, but at the same time, if you kind of get caught up in reading, it also helps you to get through it quickly because you're just forced to like keep reading the long paragraphs. There's not a lot of breaks, if you know what I mean. It was interesting reading kind of the translator's note at the end as well, and even she kind of admitted that this is kind of like a book about nothing. Like there's not a strong plot, but it was of course interesting to read about this person's life. Not a lot happened. So this was my Swedish book. I have to say, in terms of the Swedish content I've consumed, I think Young Royals is still winning over my favorite Swedish show. But yeah, I guess now we can move on to the remaining 3 books. We're halfway through. Well, here I am again with another update. It is the next day. I have reached the halfway point in the reader, which is my German pick. I literally just read the whole first half of the book on my commute today to and from work. So we have another pretty short and very readable book. I think that's why I picked so many books for this vlog, is because I knew a lot of them were very short. This is definitely the most controversial pick. It's also, I think, the oldest one. I was just double checking, and it came out in 1997. Based on some of the reviews I skimmed, it looks like it was like an Oprah book club pick, or like promoted by Oprah. And I know there's a very famous or like award-winning movie adaptation as well. So I'm a little bit late to this book here. It's pretty interesting. It is about our main character, Michael, who is 15 years old at the beginning of the book. It takes place in like post-war Germany, post-World War II. I'm not sure how many years after, but not too distant after the events. But anyways, Michael gets into this sexual relationship with this older woman, essentially. She is 36 years old. It's definitely uncomfortable to read. He really believes that he loves her, and we are just kind of hearing about their whole relationship and all the details of their time together. As a reader, you can obviously recognize some of the power imbalance of this inappropriate relationship, but of course we are reading from Michael's point of view, and he just really loves Hannah and is so happy with her and doesn't really recognize how kind of wrong the relationship is, obviously. Anyways, one day she just kind of up and leaves, and he is heartbroken, but you know, he does move on with his life, although it seems like he still has some kind of like trauma from the relationship. Obviously he was impacted by it, and I think kind of struggles to connect with people now romantically. Anyways, we skip ahead to part 2. Michael is now, I think, a law student, and he is sitting in on this trial or like court case going on that has to do with the people who were involved in the camps during World War II with the Holocaust, and Hannah is on trial. She was involved. That's kind of where we're at. So it seems like we're going to be exploring some themes of, you know, the Holocaust and Nazis, and Michael is gonna have to have, I think, some kind of moral dilemmas and contemplations with the woman he supposedly loved being involved. And I think it seems like a lot of the themes are going to be surrounding like what Germany was going through as a country after the war and stuff like that. Not the type of book I normally read, but I think this will be interesting. As I've been mentioning throughout all my books, it's definitely very relevant to Germany. I know in some of my other books it wasn't super relevant, like what countries they were taking place. Obviously this one is, as I said, some controversial, problematic kind of topics being involved, but yeah, in terms of the writing, it's very like simple, easy to read. As I said, I've been enjoying getting through it pretty quickly today. I think I could easily finish the book maybe tonight if I have time, or I might save it for tomorrow when I go into work again for me to read on the subway. Am I liking it? As much as I can, I suppose. I just think with the content, it's not going to necessarily be like a book I'm gonna love or give 5 stars is what I'm thinking. If I kind of end up liking the messages that it ends up having by the end, then maybe I will, you know, give it a 4 or something. If I end up not feeling great about what it's saying, then I definitely would rate it lower. I don't really know. I think it's going to come down to like how the book continues to evolve and how it ends. So this has been an update for now. Sorry I have not had any like b-roll clips between most of these updates because I've just been reading the book so quick. So I haven't really been showing much of my life, but I'll just check in again when I have finished it. Hi, hello. I thought I would update here in the kitchen because I am currently cooking dinner, but I just finished the reader. As this book continued, we continued to learn more details about Hannah's experience as a guard at the concentration camp that she was stationed at. Obviously, what we find out about what Hannah has done to obviously warrant her being on trial is terrible. It's absolutely terrible, obviously, what happened during that time, but you, as the reader, get to have also some empathy for her. It's very like morally complex. I don't want to delve into all of it because if you want to explore the themes and read it, then you can do that. And honestly, I would recommend it if you haven't read it already. I think it's a worthy book. I think even though it was still pretty short and quick to get through, it really said a lot. I know in some of the other books I've read recently that have been short, like I haven't felt like they've said a lot, but this one definitely did. We see Michael really struggle with how he feels about the whole situation. He feels so much guilt and shame, and it really explores how so many German people, kind of like second generation Germans after the war, felt so much guilt and shame from what happened in their country and what their parents did and what their parents' generation was involved with the Holocaust and everything. Yeah, just how their kids have this kind of guilt and shame passing down. Michael isn't sure whether to condemn Hannah or to feel for her. Like, he obviously has this love for her. And then we move into part 3. Again, I don't need to get into details of that, but you kind of see where Michael and Hannah's relationship stands. To be honest, it is kind of a beautiful, special relationship. Like, we find out why it's called The Reader. I don't want to give that away. It has to do with reading and such, obviously. Sorry I'm not talking eloquently about this. I don't want to give everything away, but what I can't get past is obviously the age difference between Hannah and Michael. It's hard for him to be like, oh yeah, I love, like, their relationship's so great, when obviously she took advantage of him when he was a 15-year-old boy. We obviously get to know the trauma that Hannah was dealing with herself, but it's like I still can't make that okay. So I think I would probably rate it a 4-star if not for that, because I think it explores interesting topics. So I'm gonna have to maybe lower it to a 3.5 because I cannot get past the 15-year-old and 36-year-old, like where they started in the relationship. But I do think like later on the relationship is special. Yeah, I don't really know how to talk about this book anymore. I'm glad that I read it. I think it's an important book. I see why it would have been so popular back when it first came out. I think it was a good book for me to read. So that is the sum up for this book. 2 more books left. Hopefully we can get another higher rated book, as we've mostly been having 3s.
Something. No exceptions. No exceptions. I want to see everybody from this side all the way to that side, all the way to the back, jumping up and down. Are you ready? Back. Are you ready? All right, here we go. I can't shake you.
Inside
Hi, here to do a halfway update for Seeing People Off by Jana Benova. Yesterday, you saw I went to the Avril Lavigne concert, saw her and Simple Plan, which was really fun, but it was pouring rain the whole time, which was not great, but we made the most of it. It's actually super gloomy. You can't even see. Super gloomy and stuff today too. Perfect to stay in and read. And I started Emily in Paris new season. Anyways, in terms of this book, I am not liking it. I think this is gonna be the worst book of the vlog, unfortunately, which sucks because it's the one book that I actually purchased. Basically, I don't even know how to describe the plot. It's very random. It's written in a pretty like unique, weird way where I feel like a lot of it is going over my head. I feel like I'm not really understanding. I'm not quite grasping all of what's going on. I think it'll be for a very specific person who likes this kind of weird narrative, and I don't even know. Like, I don't know who I would recommend this to be honest. I'll just read the side maybe to get more of a description here. It says, there's a unique liveliness and effervescence to Jana Benova's prose that is magnetic. Whether addressing the loneliness of relationships or effectiveness of rat poison, her voice and observation call to mind blah blah blah. Seeing People Off follows Elsa and Ian, a young couple living in a humongous apartment complex outside Bratislava, where the walls play music and talk and time is immaterial. Drawing on her memories, everyday interactions, observations of post-socialist realities, and Elsa's attraction to actor Callisto Tanzi, Seeing People Off is a kaleidoscopic, poetic, and deeply funny portrait of relationship. It's not really working. Like, there's occasional lines that work, but overall it's not really working for me. So I will let you know what I think at the very end, but not something I'm going to be recommending, I don't think, and really not something that's jiving with my personal taste. Sorry. All right, I finished Seeing People Off, thankfully, because yeah, I was not a fan. It is like an experimental style. If you want to check that out, I guess you can pick this up, but as I said before, I'm not really going to be recommending it. I think like I'm not really smart enough to understand this book, or maybe if you are Slovakian, you would have an easier time understanding it, because I think there definitely are references to like Slovakian culture and stuff like that. But yeah, I think I mainly said my thoughts in the first update, and I pretty much stayed the same. I do not feel like I understood a lot of what was going on here. I really don't. But it was very slim pickings in terms of finding a Slovakian book to read for this video. Not a lot of them have been translated to English from what I remember when I was researching, but this was an award winner and stuff like that, so that's why I think this was available. But yeah, unfortunately, would not recommend. I would be interested in reading another Slovakian book with maybe not such an experimental weird style, but as I said, it is hard to find. So anyways, I guess I can say I'm glad I read it. Overall, I'm glad I'm doing this video and just being a bit more diverse with my reading. But what a weird book. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I almost felt like I was high reading this. Like, it was just like, what? But if you feel like, I think this author's a poet as well. Maybe if you're into like poetry and really like dissecting what's going on in the pages and like interpreting, and like maybe if you're that kind of reader, you would like this. I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad to be done it. It's like 120 pages, and thank God, honestly, because I didn't want to read any longer. I'm gonna rate it 2 stars, by the way, so I think this makes it like one of my worst books of the year. So now I have one book left, and to be honest, I don't know if I said, but I actually did start the last book, which is the Scottish book, but then I decided to read this one instead. So now I'll go back to Under the Skin, or whatever it's called. I'll let you know when I'm halfway through that one, but that is the longest one, so will probably take me longer than the rest of these books. Hey readers, here to check in for Under the Skin by Michael Faber. I am about halfway through this book now. It is definitely a weird one once again. We're following this main character named Iserly in this book, and basically we are seeing her drive through the Highlands in Scotland picking up hitchhikers, and she is looking for a specific type of person. She wants a very like muscular, big men to take, and then she's kind of like abducting them. So it's very mysterious, like why is she abducting these men? What is going on with her? Because she has some weird little or unique little attributes about her appearance and such as well. And we're kind of hearing how these hitchhikers are describing her from their points of view sometimes as well. At this point, at the 50% mark of the book, like I have learned a decent amount about Iserly and what she has going on with this mysterious premise. And I don't want to reveal that because I don't want to spoil, but it definitely takes a bit of a sci-fi turn is what I'll say. And I can't remember if I knew that going in or not. I feel like I kind of did know that. So it's a little bit out of my usual comfort zone once again for this video, which I am happy about. I think it's cool to just read these weird random books I never would have picked up. Am I liking it? I feel like I do like Iserly as a character, so that's important that I'm connecting with her. Overall, I don't know how much I'm really loving the story though, and with the plot of what's going on. It's definitely weird, and there are still things that I'm wondering if I'm fully absorbing it, if I'm fully comprehending. Not as bad as Seeing People Off, where it literally was going over my head constantly, but this one too, I'm like, okay, I think I'm understanding certain things, but I also don't know if there's certain things that I'm missing that I'm supposed to be understanding. I don't fully feel like I grasp 100% of what they're doing with these men that she's taking, but it's definitely like something I have not read before. So I will say that. In terms of the Scottish element, obviously it does take place in the Highlands where I have actually been, so that's cool. So it does have that Scottish setting. A lot of the guys she picks up, the writing, it very much is writing like they're speaking, so very Scottish and kind of hard to understand. So I do think the setting of Scotland is pretty good. But yeah, I'll check in when I finish, and I have no idea what the rating for this one is going to be, to be honest. Found a new spot. Can you tell the days I go to the office versus the ones I don't? Actually wearing different clothes. So when I was on my lunch today, I finished Under the Skin by Michael Faber, the last book for this vlog. I can finally finish it out. This was such a weird book. Like, this is one of the weirdest books I've ever read. That holds true. It was very disturbing in terms of, I don't know if you would call it body horror, like food, flesh kind of horror. Also, there was some sexual assault, violence like that. Very weird, but the author was definitely trying to make some statements, had some messages in there, some metaphors that he was going for. I don't know if I want to spoil what they are, because I think this is the type of book it would be great to go in knowing the least amount possible. Like, it's horror, it's sci-fi, but it has still that kind of literary feel to it, because we are very closely following the character Iserly and we're very connected with her. Oh, I didn't even notice I had this hair missing. Anyways, so you don't have to feel like it's like overly like horror or sci-fi or anything. I think it's worth the read. I think if you like certain horror books that have this same kind of messaging, you would probably like this. I don't want to spoil what it was, but I'll say kind of to do with like animals, meat. You can maybe you get where I'm going with this. It does this kind of metaphor that I think has been done before. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's necessarily books that I've personally read. I think these messages have been explored before, but I think Michael did this in a very interesting way. And this book, I think, came out in 2000s. It's a bit older, so I think that's why maybe some of the themes have been done, you know, since this time. I think this also had an adaptation too, a movie adaptation, so I'm wondering if I should watch those adaptations or not. So I went with a 3.5 star rating for this one. Again, the writing was very consumable. Other than the fact that a lot of it was disturbing, it still was very readable for me, not very dense, like just very easy to consume. So overall, I guess I would recommend this. Not my favorite, but definitely glad that I read this, which is a sentiment I've had throughout this whole video. Even if not every book was my favorite, there were no 5 stars in this video, I still think it was really cool to do this concept. So in sum, obviously the Rachel incident was the only book I gave 4 stars to, and I highly recommend that for sure. And that was, of course, our Irish book. Then we had 2 3.5 star ratings. That was The Reader, which was our German book, and this one, Under the Skin, which was our Scottish book. The reason those two kind of ended up being higher rated than the rest were that they they had messages, they had things that they were saying, things the author was clearly trying to get across. And so I appreciated that. Then, of course, we had the Norwegian book, which was The Bird Tribunal, a while back that I read that, and The Details, which was the Swedish book. Both of those got 3 stars. Nothing really bad to say about them, just they didn't have as much of a meaning to them as the rest of the book. I didn't feel like I took away as much from those books, but still not bad books by any mean. And then obviously we know my least favorite one was the Slovakian book, unfortunately, Seeing People Off, which was a 2-star, and I did dislike that one, unfortunately. So very interesting reading experiment for me. I hope if you've made it this far that you enjoyed watching it as well. I would love your feedback down below. If you have thoughts on any of the specific books or this whole video concept that I did, I would love your support with a comment or a like down below. And just thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I will see you very soon with a brand new video. Bye!